AITAH for wanting to skip my toxic friend's wedding. Advice needed. Buckle in for a long post. So, I've known these two for a long time, since middle school, and we're now in our mid-late 20s. They started dating in senior year of high school. Let's call them John and Jane. Boring fake names, I know. John has been my close friend since middle school, and honestly, I trust him pretty blindly. I know his family, his flaws, his strengths, etc. And I've more or less accepted all of it. As for his then girlfriend, now fiancée Jane, I never got quite as close to her, though it wasn't for lack of trying. In middle school, she was kind of a mean girl, and I honestly was scared of her. She used to publicly humiliate girls for saying stupid stuff. She got better in high school, but honestly, she's never lost this feel of being extremely judgmental and bitter. She has definitely lost a fair amount of friends in the past, and I do think it's in part due to this toxic personality trait of hers, plus her possessiveness, was another issue we had in our friendship. It sucks in a way because I know she doesn't mean to do it. A few years ago she was diagnosed with a mood disorder, but it doesn't make it any less upsetting when we're trying to connect and she does these nasty things. Some examples. She is crazy mean when she's hurt, and has accused me of being a liar, harsh, too quick to draw boundaries, etc. And when I confront her about how hurtful she's being, she never takes accountability, just blames it on her BF or something else totally irrelevant. She is jealous. When something good happens to me, she's more likely to ask why it hasn't happened to her instead, and she never stops to think that maybe I earned these things, while she has such a chip on her shoulder and is so negative about everything, e.g., incessant negative thinking. Behavior begets negative outcomes. Maybe her worst quality. She employs shame and virtue signaling to put down others. This drives me nuts because TBH she is not that great of a person, but she loves to talk crap about other people, especially on the basis of how morally bankrupt she perceives them to be. This will seem really ironic later if you get to the end of my post. Needless to say, we've had a lot of ups and downs, and at one point I was fully prepared to let go of the friendship, as we had already drifted apart due to COVID, living in different states, and another conflict which I've yet to mention. However, my mom was always sticking up for her and wanted us to stay friends, because she believed Jane was ultimately coming from a good place. So we stayed friends, though I have definitely kept my distance as much as possible as of late. As a note, my mom passed away last year. Not that it totally gives me a pass to disintegrate the friendship, but I do feel like I can be a little more objective since I'm not being influenced by her. My mom was always giving others the benefit of the doubt, even when they didn't deserve it. Neither John or Jane have really been there for me, to be honest, which is just how grief works sometimes, I guess. Not many people have stepped up how I hoped they would. But they both completely ignored Mother's Day and my birthday, which also makes me kind of feel like we're not as close as we once were, and I feel a little lame for thinking like this, but this has also made me reconsider if I'm really friends with them and if it's worth my precious time and energy to attend their wedding. Here's the second piece that really makes me struggle with this. Back in college, John, Jane, and I hung out with their other friend from our town, Darren. It's no secret that Darren is an awful person. To quickly list some of his behaviors. He's a serial dater and cheater. He slept with my best friend and told sexually explicit, degrading stories about her to me and anyone who would listen. He showed me, and presumably others, nude pictures and videos of his ex without either of our consent. He bailed on John last minute for a housing arrangement, screwing him out of a good dorm room so he could live with his girlfriend of 3 months. In general, he speaks extremely negatively of women and fat people, despite having his own weight issues, but that's a separate conversation. And in general, this guy just sucks. He's rude, he's unpleasant, and pretty much everyone I know who knows him hates him. On top of this, early on in college I felt some intuition that Darren liked me. He would often neg me and sometimes pay me straight compliments which I felt were uncharacteristically sincere. He also used to poke fun at me often for being a virgin. He would smack my ass, kiss me on the cheek, etc., then try to play it off because he was drunk and he didn't remember. As you might expect, he comes from a troubled family, but that doesn't excuse his behavior. Due to the frequent negging, fat shaming, in general he was just obsessive over me and my body. If I gained weight, lost weight, he would always comment, an eventual anger he had towards me once I started standing up for myself. I ultimately decided I no longer wanted to see him. I expressed this to John and Jane, Though I didn't feel comfortable totally barring him from coming over, John, Jane, and I lived together the last year of college. They were pretty dismissive of my feelings and said they wanted us to work things out, but ultimately they couldn't deny that he was an asshole. We saw each other a few more times where I kept my distance, and now it's been 5 years since we've talked. To this day, they remain close friends with Darren. I don't understand it, but I suppose it's their decision. Perhaps he's gotten better, but I doubt that he can change enough to make it pleasant to see him. And as you perhaps gathered, he will be at their wedding. Both my best friend and I are dreading seeing him, because he's just a huge presence and would be really hard to avoid. Not supposed to be a fat joke, but if the shoe fits. On top of this, the venue is 2+ hours away from where I live. It just seems like a lot of effort to go through to attend a ceremony that, if I'm being honest, I really don't want to go to. I feel a little bit crazy because we've known each other for so long, but at the same time, I really do think the way they've mistreated me and, perhaps more importantly, allowed me to be mistreated, has made me completely uninterested in continuing the friendship. Does this make me an R?